let's talk about the map server now. The map server with 7.5, we had static images in 7.2 on which you could position your cameras and do fancy things, but that was restricted to the smaller static images. We have GIS maps integrated into our solution, so you can have our locations and cameras, all of them associated with latitudes, longitude, and zoom parameters, which allows for a very easy way to parse and browse to the cameras which we are interested in instead of just going by tree. We introduce a concept of layers with this release. So for the base map, we depend on GIS map providers, a couple which we support out of the box. We'll go into the details there. The base map only takes you to a certain level, but if you want to get to the more detailed areas, like if you want to get inside a building, show floor plans, etc., that is where the layers come in handy, and you can position all your cameras on those layers as well. Of the layers, the camera placement on the layers, all of that is done through the VSOM web interface, and we'll see how that is done. The viewing of the cameras and the locations on the map, all of that is available through click-throughs from our SASD client. So let me quickly show you, give you a flavor of what is available, and then we'll go through the details of what is available to the map server and go through these slides again. Going back to my SASD, we're done with motion analysis, so we'll close that. So we have for maps. So we just click maps. And the next thing is, if I select a location now, the map should go into that particular location. The alerts are just for that location below. So you look at SJC 28, right? The alerts are just for the location. So it's an easy way to look at your alerts, cameras in a easy to use interface, right? So the layers which we were talking about, if I go back to quickly close layer, go back to 8. This is location moving in. So the way we set up the location 29, it's centered on 29. That's building 29. If I click on 28, it centers it on 28. If this was far off, you would have seen the map move much further. So that's one nice thing. You see grouping of cameras. So as we zoom out and zoom in, you'll see those numbers change, right? So you have different numbers of cameras there. As I keep zooming in, this allows me to zooming out actually. So they keep getting added. So I have about 9 cameras set up. As I zoom into my locations, they start getting split up, and I can view my cameras in there. A green bar shows that there's a layer. If I click on the layer, I will be able to see the details of the layer. The top pane here, top right, can shift between floors by doing this. So that's my floor. The images themselves are also available here, my cameras. So if it's a green, it's actually a live camera. I can click camera and see the video from here, right? Now, by clicking on the base map, I go back to my base layer. And if I use the option here on the top right, this type, I can choose the open source GIS engine. So right now it's defaulted to MapQuest, but I can also use OpenStreetMap. So essentially it's just getting data from a different source, but they should all be the same. You notice that the layers didn't change at all. They are still at the same location. Right? We could use either of those options. So these are the fields available. I can move around in the map. I can zoom in, zoom out, go to my cameras. So a lot of interesting things now you can do with maps with 7.5. So I hope you have flavor, and we'll go through the details of this and how we got to this point using our slides. Darius wants to use Google Maps. Yes, Darius, if you have the money to use it, we'll do that in a couple of slides. our slides to go through. So we talked this, we have the support for GIS maps now. This is a map server which has to be a standalone server. So this is a new service like we talked about, right? With the data server, this is a new server introduced. This is like our VSOM and VSMS, right? So, but it cannot be co-resident with either of those. Like we have VSOM and VSMS co-resident, we do not support co-residency of the map server with any of the other servers or services. Same for metadata server as well. Operations manager have only one map server, and that points to having this in a centralized location, right? So all these new services, they make more sense to be used when you have your centralized deployments. A map server can be used by only one operations manager, so they cannot be shared. Same concept as VSMS, right? You can have only one VSOM which can register a VSMS. You cannot do more than one VSOM per VSMS. Same thing, you can have only one map server going to one operations manager. There's no licensing requirement, but we talked about this. This has to be on a standalone server, so you have to procure that additional hardware for it, be on a VM as well. Right. The big thing here, which is a bit painful, is that it replaces the existing maps we have for pre 7.5. This is a big change. We managed maps before. The static maps was all in VSOMs, and now we have a separate server. It's got its own GIS mapping engine. So, and we did not have the latitude, longitude coordinates for the cameras before, right? So we don't have that information to map that information into the GIS map. So unfortunate thing is you will have to do it manually again, but there is a way where you can import the maps you've already uploaded and then deploy them in 7.5. But the additional work is actually ordering the cameras again on the maps. That has to be done. But the good thing is this is far more rich. You can now assign latitude, longitude coordinates and all that good stuff for your camera location. Map interface. So we saw this, right? I was able to move the map around. There was zooming in, zooming out. We saw that, and we saw how we go between different layers in a group. I had 2 floors, so by clicking the tile on the top right, I was able to go between the 2 layers, which is the 2 floors. I can actually choose the map providers. We have 2 by default, and then I was able to choose that by changing the tile all the way on the top right corner of the map. I saw the green border along the layers we had set up, and we'll see how we actually set this up as well as we go forward. Open up the layers within it. We just click on the layer maps and that open it up as we just saw in the quick demonstration before. So this is what we saw. There's buttons, 18 levels of zoom. Group. As you zoom out, you will see cameras grouped. So when you have big deployments, this comes in really, really handy. The green border is the layers, so you can see how that is done. And that can have multiple floors associated with it, right? And on the top right, this is the layer selection. So for multiple floors, I would select this tile and choose and go to the appropriate floor and look at the cameras on there by just clicking on this green camera icon in the map interface. Right, so when we click on the green box, this is what opens up. By default, it opens up on the first floor. I look at my cameras available on the first floor. If I was interested in the second floor, I would just toggle this and go to my appropriate layer. Through a quick demonstration of how you see maps in SASD. We will also do SASD updates on Friday, so maybe we'll cover this in a bit more detail, but we've seen the features available through maps today. Let's do it. Okay, getting to a question by Darius quickly. So actually there are 3 components to getting this whole thing going. So we saw this word, so let's see what we need to do to configure and set it up to get to that point. So there's 3 things we need to do. First thing is locations, which have been available in our previous VSM versions. Now you can associate GIS positions to them. So we saw this when I was clicking between SJC 28 and 29 that the map was centering to a different location. That is because the locations are now attached to GIS positions. Matters, we saw that we have a couple by default, and these provide the base map images, so they take me through to the building level. If I want to get in even more, I would use map layers, right? So if I have more floors, as we saw, we would add map layers and add a different image for each of those floors and get that going. So now let's see details of each of these. We were able to add locations in VSM 724. Name description. Now we have the ability to set latitude, longitude, and the zoom parameters so that when you open it up, it centers to that location. And I will run through a demo of how this is done in a short while. Map, right? So these are our base images. This is coming over the internet, right? So we have to be aware of that. If you have a customer who is not going to be able to be on the internet, there's a way to disable this and have static images done. We'll see how to do that as well. The default providers are the open source ones, OpenStreetMaps and MapQuest. And we can use Bing or Google Maps, but they charge you. If this is the customer preference, then there's a way to use these, but we need to talk to Google and get the right URL and this user ID information, which will allow us to get those services. So I'll show how to enable that, but there's an extra step involved if you want to use those other mapping services. Layers. So we talked this briefly, right? All information is stored in the map server. This allows us to get into the details of floor plans and make sure we can associate cameras on their respective floors. These are well understood as far as roles and rights are concerned. So if somebody has admin privileges, has privileges to just view a certain sample of the cameras, they will only be seeing those, even though the information is coming from the map server, right? The cameras which are in the layers on top of the base map, they will also show up as part of the base map. The layers, they can have a maximum of 200 cameras displayed at a time. For 200, it's going to be ignored, and so recommend that do it for more than 2 objects. That itself is quite a bit clunky. So coming to configuring maps, so 3 things we talked about: locations, map providers, and the map layers. We will look at how to set all those up, and we'll also look at how to drag cameras onto those maps and layers using the new VSOM interfaces. And we talked about this before. All the configuration is done through the VSOM web UI, but the accessing of the maps is done through our SASD client. So instead of into the slides, I'll show you how this is done through a live setup. I'll go and configure a location. So that's the way we used to do it before: system settings, locations, source, and go ahead is 30 as my sublocation, right? Can add description like we did before.
Your screen is a little bit lagging to what you're talking about.
Are you seeing the edit location screen now?
Yeah, we're on SJC 30 now.
Oh, so I'll go a little bit slower. Okay, this is doing something else as well. So he's asking if the map server is it to be a standalone server? Yes, it cannot be co-resident with VSOM. It has to be by itself. It's pretty expensive, which is the reason why we separate it out and we get co-installed with anything today. Yeah, that's answered. All the new services are standalone. Metadata server, the map server, and Lionel's going to talk about the federator once I'm done with the maps. Right. So I was setting up my location. I give a name of the location. Now I want to give it the lat long coordinates. So I click. It takes me to my home location. Actually, it did not ask me this time because I already gave it permission to access my home location. So it knows that I'm in building 28 today, so it's centered around it. Right now, I can move my map parameters and go to building 30. Enter there so that when I JC 30, this is the map location which it opens up and centers it on building 30. Right. So just click on set. Again, here I could choose my mapping options as well. Right. So not much choosing one or the other. I mean, it's pretty same. It's a personal preference essentially. So at that, it populated the latitude and longitude parameters and the zoom parameters. Right. So that, and that gives me my location. Slide for a minute. So we saw how we set the map position by moving the slide, centering it to the location, and then like that, we were able to set the map location. What we do is go and configure layers. I'll go and do this on VSOM instead of going through this slide. So, and by context of map server, it being standalone, so this is how my map server looks like. If I relog in to the server, right? So I need this server to be set up with all my network parameters, all my other parameters, restart services, and then when I come back here, you will see that the map server is active and all the others are grayed out. Now you can have it co-located with VSOM or the VSF either. So this is how it looks when it is setting up your media server, except when you choose your services, you choose map server, right? Once that is set up, we can go to our VSOM and start doing the map server. How do we do that? In our system settings, we have a new head resources now, maps layers and maps editors. I'm going to maps layers, and you'll see a couple of groupings there already, right? We got 2 floors on building 28 and 29. Those are set up. Those are seen as published, which means that this information has been transmitted over to the map server. If you see unpublished, that means that information is still on VSOM. It has not yet made it to the map server. I'll show you how that is done. So adding an image layer, 30. So I have the image already procured. Location, I just added 30. How convenient. Group. This is a drawing. It's a free form, so I can create a new group here. A group called 30, and you see the red border around the parameters for the box. So we need to do this before we can move forward. If I don't do it and hit update now, it is not complete, or do cancel. See the grouping is under unpublished. So this information is still on VSOM. It has got the information about the map, but this is not made it through to the map server. I have to go again, set this layer in my image. So again, zoom in to my location. I go there, zoom all the way through. Rectangle now, right? So I can use this button and rectangle around the area that I'm interested in. I didn't do a good job of that, so I'm going to delete that and do another one. That by clicking that button and moving these settings around. So that is my layer, and this layer is associated with the image which I just updated as the floor one image. Right? So I set it. I lost my location for some reason, so I go back and set that. The grouping is gone, so I will add that again. And group created for HAC 30. Floor. This is the image associated with floor 1. Floor 2, same method. Add. second floor image, and choose the look for it, choose the right and choose the right position for it on the map. Again, I'll go to building third. It's already got one layer, so to add the other second layer, we choose the same settings. Just do a big box on top of it and click set. And finally update. So we've created a group with 2 floors and then do map layers. Let's see if there's sections coming in. No, we're okay. The tab which is interesting here is the providers tab, right? See MapQuest and OpenStreet, which are there by default and they're active by default. Right? If you add Google, I would go here and work with Google to get all this relevant information, URL which is associated with the valid ID and all that, and do an add here. So simple as that, and that should start showing up as an option in your tiles. Disable these when you have Google and you want that to be your default. You could do that by just double clicking on it and deselecting the active button. The time you do this is when you know you are in the offline mode, you're not going to have internet connection, so you would just disable these and just use static maps associated with the base image layer. You will not be able to do image layers on top and all that. It will be similar to what you could do in 7.2, although the GIS mapping map server is handling that, but it's only going to be static image. So that option is still available if you're in the offline mode. All right. Going back to my slides again. Jason seeing a lag? Okay, cool. This just went through a lot of text. You have these slides you can go through. So essentially, we clicked on maps layers. We went and created layers in layer groups. So we created SAC 30, and then we saw how to publish a layer. If it's unfinished, then it's really not usable. It's just there and VSOM waiting for you to finish the configuration and publish that. Right. So then it's gone to the map server. We went all these steps. There's a few different options for your layer images. The ones I had uploaded were PNG. You could use JPEG or shapefiles. Shapefiles are useful when you have the offline mode. Shapefiles have long and a few other parameters internal to the file format, so that might be useful as a middle on compromise, right? When you're in the offline mode. We went all these steps to select the latitude and longitude positions. We saw how to draw a rectangle and then create a layer. So there were a couple of icons which allowed edit and delete the work I was doing when I was drawing the rectangle. To save, it's not saved. A slide to show what we did. Right, the rectangle button on the top left, bounded by the red here in this slide. That is what allowed me to select the layer, which shows up as a pink box over there. Right, so now we got a layer associated. We are ready to add cameras to our maps. Right, so let's go do that. Go back to system settings and map editor. On SAC 30, it's entered it to my location, which I wanted to get into, and it had a couple of cameras. I just removed them by click camera and do a remove marker and show how to add the cameras. Right? We do not have any cameras from there, so I'm just going to fake it. Pick a couple of cameras from somewhere. Cameras, so I can move my map around, and clicking on layer, I can get to the floors. So I could choose either floor. So I'm going to just move this camera and add it onto this floor. That bar turns pink while I'm doing that. So it's added. If everything is well, it will show up as green. I can click on it and I can adjust the orientation of the camera. So the way the camera is looking, I can just set that over there. this is as a useful guidance for the operator. If you had a PTZ camera and are wondering if this is going to show exactly where your PTZ camera is pointing to, it will not. It is useful guidance for the operator while he's using the map interface. Right. So I've added one to the first floor. I'll show you how to add another to the second floor. Make it pink. Drop it on there. Adjust orientation. So click on set, and you're done. So essentially, you add cameras into the layers. If I go back to my SASD, we'll see them there. Right. Done with this. So I go on the camera, and there's your video. So that's how you use the maps editor to set your cameras on your list. So we went steps. We played around a layer. We adjusted the camera orientation. Pretty simple stuff. And then briefly on how to convert your maps you had pre 0.5 to 7.5. As you said, they will not work as is because they lack the latitude longitude parameters. So we have a migration path on taking the strategies you have and moving them to 7.5. So when you upgrade, it will create a file in this directory you see here. You can upload that zip file directly into the layers as well. So one thing I missed to mention before, you can upload zip files of the JPEGs and PNGs as well when you're uploading images into layers. So that is, you would import your 7.2 maps into 7.5, and you'll have to go through the extra step of putting those cameras onto the GIS locations. But a small bit of pain, it's going to allow you to do a lot more richer things as we go forward with GIS maps. A few numbers. We've tested on a 4-core standalone OBA image. We can go up to 1,000 layers, and the size of JPEGs we tested with were 3 megabytes. We have more numbers with different formats and different sizes of the images, but that is your guideline for today. So there is a download request limit as well. So if you had 50 SASD clients, each of them downloading a map from the map server, that's the limit. The 51st one is going to be rejected because the server is going to quickly run out of juice. But it's only while it is downloading. So if you're not moving around a lot in the maps, you're okay. I mean, that's a pretty reasonable number, 50. If you are exceeding 50, it won't work very well. A lot of data on the map server itself, so you can do one schedule and one manual backup, right? So there is an upper limit on the file sizes of the formats we talked about before. So JPEGs, you can go up to 19 megabytes, PNG up to 60 megabytes, and shapefiles, you can go up to 8 megabytes because they've got a lot more content in them. Maps locations for log files for the map server. You would just log into your map server, same log directory, USR BW HTTPD logs, geoserver, geoserver.log. All data itself, camera positioning, all that good information is under /var/GIS maps. Do not touch it unless Mac is asking you to. So that is the end of the map session.